Hey, good morning everyone. It is Monday, September 9th, and it's time for the Monday News Brief. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Monday News Brief brought to you by CDTTV, a part of the Central Dakota Times. I'm your host again, Nate Iverson, and in this week's episode we have Dakota Indian Foundation Director Mike Normile. Mike is going to be sharing his vision for the Dakota Indian Foundation, as well as some of the projects and programs they offer, and also break down their three main goals to achieving their mission. And as always, if you'd like to get more news, sports, updates, activities, and more, be sure to pick up your very own copy of the Central Dakota Times every Wednesday morning wherever newspapers are sold in Central South Dakota. Let's get to it. Hey CDTTV viewers, we are here at the Dakota Indian Foundation with Director Mike Normile. Mike, it feels like I see you all the time now.
Yeah, you're right. A couple times in a week. It's just like old times.
That's right. So before we start talking about the foundation, I'm a little curious about yourself. Can you tell the audience a little more about you?
A little more about me. I've been in Chamberlain since 1992. I served at the Chamber of Commerce from 92 to 99, left and went to a variety of different places, but spent most of the time between then and 2013 at Variety Plus, selling and servicing computers at Radio Shack. And then I came back to the Chamber in 2013, was at the Chamber until just this past Christmas. Took over as the director for Dakota Indian Foundation at the end of February.
Awesome. So you've been working in service work pretty much for the majority of your career.
Pretty much.
So this is nothing new to you.
Nope.
So about your position a little bit, can you tell us more about what you do as the director?
You wear a variety of hats. You do a lot of different things, mostly keeping this organization on track for scholarships, grants, and we do some economic development too, so I can talk about those three things. But
yeah, we'll get into that here in a second. And then just the foundation itself, this is actually the perfect segue for you. The foundation itself, you mentioned scholarships, grants, and the economic development. Let's just go ahead and maybe break those down one by one.
Okay. The biggest ordeal that we deal with Dakota Indian Foundation is scholarships.
Okay.
We provide scholarships to Native American students who have finished at least their first year of school on the college level.
So it's secondary?
Secondary
Do
education.
tech schools and stuff count in there?
Yes.
Okay, so any kind of post-secondary education.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They can also even go on and get their master's and a doctorate if they continue to, or if they have never even been funded before, they can apply during those years as well. So this past semester we put out 56 scholarships to students both returning to school that have applied for grants and applied for scholarships and received them in the past, and then for new scholarships. So that's a sizable number. And so to help pay for that, basically we do a lot of appeals, pretty much monthly.
Okay.
Where letters go out across the country and ask people for donations. John Beheeler, who was the past director, writes those letters, does a very good job of it, and then we have a company out of Rapid City that puts the mailings together for us, send them off, and then the money comes back into us.
Okay, so like all the writing and the planning that was done in-house, and then it's just kind of the production and the logistics part. Gets
exactly.
Awesome. So and then is that, I know John Beheeler, you said, wrote some of this. Is there a committee also that helps with that?
He gets a lot. He'll get some input from me. He'll throw a pitch at me and say, "What do you think?" And one of the things that I also was involved with was developing an appeal for past recipients. Wasn't as successful as I'd hoped, and the reason it wasn't successful was probably because it's the location where people currently reside versus when they lived with their parents, they had one address. When they're in school, they had another address. The fact that they've been in school, may have moved around, have graduated and gone to a different school, trying to catch up with them has always been a challenge.
So managing that database is...
Yeah, it was interesting putting it together, but even trying to do upkeep with it, it's almost an impossibility. I don't even know where to begin to do that. But it's not like where you go to college and the Alumni Association is contacting you about helping fund that source, because ordinarily, if they have your address, they have your permanent address. And
Gotcha.
That's the challenge. So I was directly involved with that. That was one of the things that I suggested. I'd like to see it continue, but I don't know the best route to do that. So, we do get a lot of money that comes in as donations because of the appeals that go out. And that money goes into the general account. It also helps to cover grants. Now, grants is a second part of it.
Okay.
What the grants do is that is money that is provided for culturally enriching activities. A couple things that we've done since I've been back, or since I've been here actually, we helped sponsor Lakota Language Weekend that took place in Lower Brule. That was interesting. I was over there as part of that myself.
Oh, sweet.
To get a feel for what the language is like, and it's probably, if you think English is tough, try learning Lakota language. It was, I call it an immersion weekend, because basically you go over there and there's very little English that is spoken. They tell you what they're going to do, and then they get right into the language.
They say that's one of the most efficient ways to learn a language, actually, is to just, you kind of get thrown into it.
Right, but I think the more efficient way is to be a lot younger than I am and trying to do it. It was very well done. I was really impressed with it and enjoyed it. The problem that I found, though, is when you start at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and by 2 o'clock they start the second session because you break for lunch. It doesn't work too well. My brain was fried. And the way that it was done really well. The way that it was done was the instructor had people stand in a circle, and then the person closest to the instructor was asked a question in Lakota. You answered it in Lakota, and then you asked the next person the same question. The interesting part of it is, because of the nature of the questions they were asking, the answer that the second person giving was not the same as what you had given.
Sure.
Basically, they were asking, what is your name? Where are you from? Where do you live? And by the afternoon session, I made the mistake of being right next to the instructor, so I was the first one asked. And I must have had this really wicked blank stare on my face, because he asked a question, and I just basically said to him, I don't understand the question. I can't give you the answer to that question, nor am I in a position to ask the next person the same question. It was just that fried.
Oh, wow.
So
they run you through the mill. You get the full experience.
Yeah, well, but then the next day was the same thing. In the morning I started out really well, but by the afternoon, give it up. It didn't work. I came home, and what was interesting was I came home with materials and suggested ways of studying the language. Mostly flashcards, work for stuff like that. Putting the Lakota term on one side, the English term on another, and then besides writing them, saying them, so that, and then keep practicing that way.
Sure.
She was 4 at the time. My granddaughter came out that night and asked me what I was doing, and I told her, and she said, can I do it? And so I was teaching her, the language. Well, 4-year-olds little kids are sponges, and so I was doing basic things like cat, which is Igmu, dog, which is Shunka, butterfly, which is really cool, it's Kamimala, and saying those words to her, and all I had to do was say it once, and she to this day still knows what those words are.
Oh, wow.
And so it's fascinating, and so, I really believe that some of the schools that are teaching the kids from, say, preschool on through as an immersion program, that's where they're going to get the true speakers of it. They're going to be the ones to continue to promote the language.
Sure.
They'll learn it, and I know that some of the schools are doing some programs now where they're starting kindergarten kids, and they'll be certified speakers by the time they're seniors in high school. So that's 12 years of learning the language, and what a better way to bring it back.
Right, and then that's just one of the pieces that Dakota Indian Foundation helps with.
Right.
You mentioned a drum class too, right?
Yeah, we did during the month of June and part of July. We did a 4-segment drum class, traditional drum and singing lessons for anybody interested. And one of the things that I thought was fascinating is the whole concept that everything has a spirit. And what I mean by that is the understanding that I have is that even a drum has a spirit because of the materials that it's made from. The tree, which is the wood base, has a spirit. The hide that came from, I assume that, a lot of what we sell are a buffalo. And if that's the case, the buffalo had a spirit. So there is a spirit world and a significance to that drum. What I thought was really neat was before they started the actual drumming classes, they broke tobacco, they prayed over this drum, and they explained to the kids the significance of the drum and how it's to be respected and how it's to be treated. That was a whole education for me, and that was fascinating to see that. And then what they ended up doing was, once they got started with it, we had I think it was 19 kids that had signed up for this class.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents brought the kids in, and the boys sat around the drum, the women and girls stood around the back. So there was a different significance for the women. And I don't want to sound like I'm making things up, but for clarity's sake, let's just take it at that. The boys drum, the women complement the men singing,
Mm-hmm.
and bring it to a reality, but the women are just as important with that as the men are.
Sure.
And so what I thought was fascinating with that too, by the time I got through the third lesson, some of the kids who had been to drumming in the past knew, and my kids know this, is that there is music out there geared toward kids. Walt Disney has drumming songs. Mickey Mouse. Old MacDonald.
Oh, okay.
Farm is a song that everybody knows in English, and they were being taught how to drum and sing that song, in Lakota as well.
Mm.
So the last two lessons, they spent maybe the last half hour focusing on that, and you could see the excitement on the little kids' faces as they were drumming and singing with those songs. So that, to me, was probably the best way to teach these kids.
Right.
The importance and the fun that they can have, becoming a traditional drummer, because they use the drum for everything. Every ceremony has a drum attached to it. Powwows, for instance, you go to a powwow, you go to a Sundance. I have not been to one, but I understand there's a drum involved in it. When someone passes, there is a drumming and singing that takes place there. Basketball games, graduations, there's always a drum involved because the drum is the heartbeat of the tribe. And so life kind of evolves around that whole thing, and to me it's brought a fascination. I feel really fortunate because of where I'm sitting. The fact that I am a non-native running a native organization, but have native kids and grandkids, so that I can help them learn their culture and become proud of that as they are growing up.
Sure.
So it's kind of an interesting situation to be in.
Awesome. And then it's kind of cool too, because they're taught the cultural and spiritual value of the drum, but then it's put to a simpler thing that kids can pick up instead of the complexities. And it's also, they just love, it's kids songs, they're popular.
Exactly.
So.
See, and the kids too. My kids dance, my grandkids dance, and they will watch. YouTube is the best thing that's ever come out. They will watch on the computer or listen to on DVD, whatever. They will watch, say, the Black Hills Powwow that's coming up in October. I think we have a 6-hour video from the 2015 Black Hills Powwow, and the kids watch that, and that's been a major learning tool for them to learn to drum.
Sure.
For them to learn to dance. There's a series that I think is fascinating too, and you find this on YouTube. It's called Powwow Sweat. It teaches the dance moves. First with the people just in street clothes. And then the ones that I've seen anyway will have 3 different dancers in 3 different types of regalia doing those same steps. So there's a basic step, and then there's offshoots to Say for instance, jingle dancing, shawl dancing, traditional dancing, grass dancing.
Sure.
And it's fascinating because the kids will watch that, and my kids dance around the house all the time. We always have, not always, but quite a bit of the time, there's traditional drum music on.
Sure. And, educational moment. A lot of people I've heard don't necessarily understand regalia is the proper term for
the clothing attire.
Clothing, worn at powwow for various dances. So, there you go. You learn something new every day.
Thank you.
That's part of the education wing right there.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing too, is you learn those things, and it becomes that important to you that you don't call them costumes. They're not costumes. And,
right.
That can be offensive to people as well. So the regalia, you're right. I never thought about it because it's already starting to come.
It's just something,
vocabulary.
Yeah, second nature at this point. So, and then let's go to point number 3, some economic development.
Economic development, yes. One of the things I think that people need to understand is when it comes to Native American crafts, whether it be beadwork, whether it be creating drums, whether it be creating other regalia, whether it has to do with quilting.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that someone takes and makes a piece of artwork, it's very time consuming. Watching someone do beadwork from the beginning, knowing what beadwork consists of. And that's the thing with the economic development of, say, our gallery and gift shop here, is people can take a product that they learn how to make, and then they can market it themselves, or they can sell it to us and we can sell it for them.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is they'll bring in, say, the beads, the beadwork, and we will buy it from them. We put it in the case and then we sell it. The money then goes back into our account. So if you came in, and had something that was marketable, I could then, shoot your price and buy that from you and then sell it. So that's the whole reason for the gallery, to give people an opportunity or an outlet to sell stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've started doing, we were just commenting on this painting of Daniel Long Soldiers on the wall. We have a lot of artists that have had a lot of exposure over the years and have established themselves. Well, one of the things I started doing when I came here was thinking, I know there's a lot of established artists, but there's also new and upcoming artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put it out that what I'd like to do, and the board seemed to approve that, they liked the idea of bringing young, up-and-coming artists into the gallery to show, to have an exhibit. So the first one we did was I got a hold of Scott Fischel, who is the Gifted Talented Coordinator at St. Francis Indian School. And he also works with LNI, Lakota Nation Invitational, during Christmas time out in Rapid City. He works with those two organizations. And then the third one that he works with is the Oscar House Summer Art Institute in Vermilion. And he and I set it up for him to bring a bunch of artwork from St. Francis Indian School here, high school students, 7th grade out. And we put those on exhibit for a month. And then from that, I got the second exhibit, which was the Oscar House Summer Art Institute. These are students that go to the University of South Dakota for 2 weeks down in Vermilion. I think it was 2 weeks. And they also learn artwork. And so by bringing his student artwork here, it gave them a chance to get some exposure. Mm-hmm. I want people, especially young artists coming up, to understand the value of what it is that they're doing.
Sure.
That they could get a pretty penny because it's unique, it's one of a kind, and you've opened your soul in the process of doing this, this piece.
Right.
So I think it's important that they understand that.
Cool.
And not undersell. And that's where the economic development part of it comes in, because once they start to feel comfortable with what they're doing and see that there's a market for it, they can do really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so like with scholarships, like with grants, when you start encouraging people to promote themselves, to promote their culture, to get that education, come back and increase the confidence on the reservation, everybody is going to be lifted up.
Sure.
And I think that is a big part of what we attempt to do here. So anyway, transparency. Basically, until I started working in this organization, I really didn't know what Dakota Indian Foundation did. Mm-hmm. And coming over here, taking this job, it's like if I don't know didn't know ahead of time what the organization does, how do I expect other people to know about it? So I think the best way to get people willing to make donations, even if it's local people, is to let people know what we do. That's why I started a Facebook page, so that I'm trying to do it on a daily basis. There's actually 2 different pages. One is the Dakota Indian Foundation page, and basically just letting people know, we take donations. This is what we do. We provide scholarships. Just putting the word out there. We also put the information out there for upcoming powwows. Letting people know, what's going on. So that's a big part of doing that. We have the gallery page, which, I get calls from people saying, so how much are those earrings? And they can actually go to the website, click on that, because I usually create a link.
Sure. And
they can go to the website and purchase it right there. Or they can call here, or they can email here and say, do you still have that pair of earrings? Can you send it to me? And we do. We mail stuff out all the time. But that's to let people know locally. We've got a great store here. This is all unique, one-of-a-kind, authentic stuff. It's not...
Right. It's not mass-produced.
No, not at all. Nobody is that good when it comes to creating crafts that they have time to mass-produce and one bead here, one bead here, one bead.
Yeah, really.
It doesn't happen. So that's part of the transparency, too. The biggest part of it, I think, is the website.
Sure.
If you have people if people are being solicited to help with funding, one of the best things they do is they go to the internet and they pull up Charity Navigator and they ask about Dakota Indian Foundation. Without transparency, usually Charity Navigator will give you a rating between 4 stars and no stars. Mm-hmm. And because of a lack of transparency in the past, Dakota Indian Foundation didn't have a real good reputation.
Sure.
It wasn't that we weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing. It was more a matter of
just finding information.
What were we doing?
Yeah, finding information.
Right. And so when you're creating your website, one of the things that's really important, one, is to let people know who's on your board of directors. So when I first started, I looked and I saw the director and I saw the president of the board. The board right now has 6 members, so they're all on there. My information is on there as the director. But the biggest thing is okay, if we are providing scholarships, what are people doing after they finish school? Are they succeeding? Are they quitting school? What are they doing? So I went looking through the files and I found people that I knew had graduated and what they were doing. So I contacted them and said, would you be willing to provide me with a profile of what you've done since getting your degree? I said, I don't care if it's using the degree that you started out with, because I've switched 3 or 4 different times from using my degree. And when I took this job, when I took the chamber job, my wife said to me, you do realize you're using your degree again? I mean, I wasn't really when I was working at Radio Shack,
right,
but it was a whole nother education. So it doesn't matter what education they've gotten. The fact that they've received an education, it opens doors for them. And they're doing some really fascinating things. So now a person can go to our website.
Which is, by the way, your website?
I was just going to say it.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Then there's a tab across the top. Click on the scholarship tab. That'll give them the information if they're interested in applying for a scholarship, but it also gives them a list of success stories as well as recipients. The most recent recipients for scholarships are on there now. But people can pull it up and say, hey, this person just got their doctorate, and part of it was because they got funding from us. This person has received 2 bachelor's degrees. This person has gone to a trade school, but they're all doing cool things, which will help everybody in the long run.
Sure.
And so that to me was real important that we get that out there. The other thing too, with the grants, what do you provide? What does culturally enriching activities mean? We provide money for powwows. We provide money. This shirt itself was a project that we helped to fund.
Mm-hmm.
The what is it? Dakota? No. There's an organization up in Pierre that works with foster care, and they have 50 kids in foster care that they're giving suicide prevention T-shirts to, and that's what this is a suicide prevention T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So we help to fund that. We help to fund powwows. We help to fund sundances. The Lakota language one was one that we funded. We put together the traditional drum sing lessons. I'm working on a grant right now, trying to get money to do what I'd like to do, and I don't know if I'm going to get there because I need a lot of help with it, but I'm hoping to offer Lakota/Dakota language here in town.
Sure.
During the winter months. And so there are grants available for that. They don't even give you a limit as to how much you can apply for. So you put all you put a budget together and you shoot it off to them. But in order to do that, you have to have language speakers as part of your project so that they can see how even that language has evolved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting all of that together and waiting for the people that know these stuff to help me with that. But it's part of what you do. You
Sure.
find opportunities and you take advantage of it. And hopefully we'll succeed with that because I think that's important too. And that if we were to do something like that, I would open it up to the community.
Sure.
Anybody that wants to. Excuse me. I would hope that teachers at the school would take the class. I think the thing of it is it's not something that you can become fluent overnight. At least I can't. Babies maybe, yeah, but not me. And there are so many tools out there for learning the language. So we'll see how it goes. I'd really like to be able to offer it for credit.
Oh, that'd be cool.
On a college level. So I've been in touch with USD and see about doing something like that as well.
Well, Mike, I think I won't take up too much more of your time, but Dakota Indian Foundation is available at www.dakotaindianfoundation.net or .org.
Right.
You're on Facebook, and you are here on Main Street, Chamberlain.
Yes, we are.
All
Just
right.
north of Lewis Drug.
Right on. Cool. Well, Mike, thanks for sitting down and taking some time out of your day.
Thanks for your time, Nate.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, thanks for stopping in and joining us for another edition of the Monday News Brief brought to you by CDTTV, a part of the Central Dakota Times. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more, we're also available online at www.centraldakotaTimes.org. We also have a YouTube channel by searching Central Dakota Times newspaper, and we're on Facebook also by searching Central Dakota Times. We'd love to have you check out some of our free online content. Until next week, I'm Nate Iverson, and have a good one.